Donnie, are you there?
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, George.
Donnie, what's your good? I'm great. What's your last name?
O'Sullivan.
O'Sullivan, great. So you work directly for CNN, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, are you in the news side of CNN or the DC bureau or what?
I'm in news side here in New York.
Oh, New York. The news site in New York. Great. Okay, we should come over and see you. Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask George. So, speaking with Zanesville police yesterday, and they told me that the FBI did drop in to speak to you while you were detained there. Obviously, the FBI won't actually confirm that for me. Can you confirm that the FBI spoke to you?
Yes, an agent, Petty John, I believe, from the Cincinnati FBI. He was field FBI. He wasn't counterintelligence FBI. And then another officer, Dugan or something like that, a woman, but I don't remember her exact name. Officer Petty John asked me most of the questions from. He was just filling in for the CI, the counterintel side of the FBI.
And that was at Zanesville City Jail, right?
That's correct.
And you were arraigned yesterday at Zanesville Court on a DUI charge, right?
No, I think it's going to be an impairment charge, one level down from that. But my attorneys advised me not to talk about that. Other than the fact that I was chasing a source, I went to meet a source probably too late at night on a story I was working about DISA, which is the Joint Spectrum Center in Columbus. So as you know, the day before or earlier that day, I'd been at the Clarksburg, West Virginia, talking about a pervasive surveillance program that the FBI was running. And then I met with a source who kind of runs a cadre of 6 different ex-Homeland Security veterans, even before Homeland Security was created. And they're the ones who informed me that they felt that there was a clear and imminent threat. And I had done a story about 30 days earlier on this Memphis.
So just asking on that, and because I watched through the videos, the source who mentioned to you about the Memphis Maersk, that was a source who had spoken to, you said 5 or 6 other people in the intelligence community, is that correct?
5 or 6 other retirees from the intelligence community. Some had worked in Pakistan. Some had worked in drug interdiction in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Some had worked U.S. security.
Gotcha.
This person directly was involved in foiling a plot to kill President Bush in 2004, and he also was credited with saving 2,000 individuals in another terrorist incident.
And he's been a long-time source of yours?
I would say he's been a source for about 6 months. I've met him. Jason has also talked with him at length.
Cool.
So he seems to be the real deal.
And did he say specifically to you that there was, that essentially there was a dirty bomb on the Memphis Maersk that he believed based on?
No.
Okay.
We never said that. What we do is we publish crowdsource intelligence to the crowd. We explain to everyone that we then begin fact-checking that noise basically into signal, and then even more so with government records, government documents, government interviews, to then arrive at real actionable intelligence. This is exactly the same process our intelligence agencies use, but for some reason our intelligence agencies just don't want to report on the Awan brothers. So the Awan brothers, we consider, these individuals consider the Awan brothers a clear and present danger to the United States.
Gotcha. I guess watching your initial live stream on Wednesday, and so I know when you guys were streaming live, you guys are also reading the comments on both YouTube and also the Facebook group, I guess, from the audience. Is that the sort of idea of the crowdsourcing?
Well, the comments on the live stream only come from YouTube, but the crowdsourced intelligence analysis comes from all sources, email.
Okay, and so you guys are kind of watching those and reading those and reacting to those as they come in, right?
Yes, and we also introduce tools.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I did not know where the Memphis Maersk was. All I knew was that they had said that it had been involved in contraband. These experts.
Gotcha.
There is a capability, I think, called Fleet Finder. So we introduced the Fleet Finder tool. People said it's 8 minutes outside of Charleston. We had no idea. We were not trying to sound any alarm bells about, dirty bombs or anything. The other thing that came out of that was something called Import Genius. Import Genius is another tool where you can drill down on bills of lading, in certain shipments. We had identified the Awan brothers as having made several shipments over the years on the Maersk, and they are involved in lots of questionable activity on Capitol Hill,
including an investigation by the D.C. Capitol Police.
So can I just, in terms of when I mean, in the stream you mentioned that a source had said to you something that, possible dirty bomb targeting Memphis. And then I think about 2 or 3 minutes later, you said actually maybe the threat is to the Memphis Maersk. So that was something that you were kind of
What we said was someone said so one of the comments came through and said raised the prospect of dirty bomb, and we had noted one of the comments that Dr. Jerome Corsi had written an article in 2006, I believe, a book that talked about that exact same scenario.
The risks, the high level of risk of a dirty bomb, and the relative ease of unleashing the environmental and human life disaster that a dirty bomb would cause, how easily it could be achieved.
Okay, so then people in the crowdsource said, well, they have radiation detectors for that. So I went about trying to find the source within the Coast Guard or Customs and Border Patrol that would affect that easy, standard, specific check. So at that point, I believe someone, when one of the viewers had mentioned the dirty bomb possibility, one of the users did call the Coast Guard. One of the viewers called the Coast Guard. I believe 2 viewers actually called the Coast Guard.
And Jason later.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
After the third call, when he had called, he had said, "Hey, 2 other. Is this about the dirty bomb?" was the first question, and they immediately cut him off and said, "Oh, we've heard about it from 2 other people already." So I never said anything about a dirty bomb other than the fact that the crowd sources were saying there should be radiation testing, standard radiation testing available. So I was with a law enforcement officer while this was happening, and I received a call from the Port of Charleston Coast Guard, and they asked me about it. And I said, well, there's a standard. I had said earlier that the cover or the loophole is called the diplomatic pouch. The diplomatic pouch loophole allows diplomats to send up to container-sized containers under diplomatic immunity, meaning that they're not searched. So I specifically said and I have a witness to this fact, I said to the Coast Guard, I said, you only need to be concerned about the shipments from the Awan brothers with under diplomatic cover, under diplomatic pouch, and you only need to do standard tests. The standard tests being the standard radioactive detectors and the dogs. And the Coast Guard said, well, we don't do that. We do, Customs and Border Patrol does that. Okay? So then I get a call a little bit later, and I don't know the exact timing, maybe 20 minutes later, a much larger group. Now Customs and Border Patrol is involved. And they said that's what they do. So I informed them, again, I'm not interested in anything other than the Awan brothers and things traveling under diplomatic pouch. And just do your standard checks, specific standard checks. You don't have to shut the port down or anything like that, but I believe it'd be worthwhile if something is coming in. Again, because I knew the Awan brothers had connections to Pakistani ISI. They had radical jihad on their website. They were making $160,000 in Congress. They were wanted by the Capitol Police for 20 burglaries in Congress. They owned a series of failed car dealerships.
Over 20 businesses.
20 businesses that seemed like
12
homes. So it just seemed like,
Yeah. So can I ask what? Because I mean, what specifically did your source tell you was the threat?
Well, the source called me back. The source called me back when the people were talking about. The source called me back when people were talking about the dirty bombs, and he had mentioned that there was a certain level of background radiation that was the trigger level for a search. Because there's a certain amount of red bag waste, I guess. He mentioned that there was a...
So this was during the live stream?
Yes, during the live stream. He mentioned,
No, the source was not on the live stream.
No, but I called him at the gas station. I called him at Mother Tucker's gas station is where I talked to him, where I was filling up on gas. And he mentioned that there's a certain level of background radiation that's acceptable. Red bag waste, for some reason, is purchased. These are when, you go and do an operation, and then they have to irradiate the fluid, and then they have to dispose of it. There's apparently a company in Sicily that's dumping this stuff off the Yemeni coast. And I thought, wow, that's really crazy. I don't really want to report on that right now. That's kind of a field. I'm sure the people at Customs and Border Patrol would have a handle on what is background radiation from that sort of activity versus, what a dirty bomb might be. Other people on the crowdsource mentioned that North Korea might be a place where this is shipping from.
So when you watch back when I watch back the live stream, you mentioned your source said that, Memphis, the city of Memphis, and then I guess I think it was a couple of minutes later that you brought up the Memphis Maersk.
That's because he was my source earlier on a story about 30 days ago of the Memphis Maersk being involved in illegal contraband activities between Karachi, Mumbai, and the Port of New York. Now, I said, is this intelligence around Memphis? Do they mean the ship? And he said, well, that very well could be that it's the Memphis. So again, I was just passing along information to the authorities. At no time did I ever say there should be a general search done. I received a third call from about 35 different people where DHS was online. They were escalating this thing way beyond what we had recommended, which is a specific standard search. We've recommended a triple S, which is specific standard search that wouldn't cause any disruption to the port whatsoever. It would be very...
So you think the authorities overreacted?
I believe they did not do what we recommended, which was a specific standard search. They decided to shut the port down.
Yeah.
And when this group of 35 was talking, and again, I have witnesses to this effect, they were saying, you're causing a really big rhubarb here, and this is a really big thing. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I just want you to use your standard tools to check out containers with diplomatic immunity, diplomatic pouch. And if they're from the Awan brothers, I think that's a red flag. That's all I said.
So, I mean, in terms of just kind of a more broad question, and then I'll let you go because I actually have to file this story pretty soon. But, sure. I mean, obviously, watching, just from watching the video, obviously, I mean, the talk of, threats, dirty bombs, a specific ship, etc. Do you think there's, I mean...
Do you think it's irresponsible? I don't think it's irresponsible because there was an article that came out called Gulf Tainer, and it said, what could go wrong here? And the Gulf Tainer, I can't remember which journalist wrote the article about Gulf Tainer, but it was about a UAE company that had rights to 43 different ports. Jason will look it up for you and get it. About 43 different ports, Port Canaveral in Florida being the first one. And they were talking about how one of the key principles in Gulf Tainer was an Iran nuclear scientist. The architect, so Dubai-based Gulf Tainer, this is the Wall Street Journal, Dubai-based Gulf Tainer, Robbie Whelan.
My question is, because obviously, if you're in a closed setting, I mean, as people often do in newsrooms, etc., will, speculation, formulation, come up with various theories about what may or may not happen. I guess that's what journalists and investigators do. But the fact that you're doing that out in the open and it's public, I mean, do you think there's an irresponsibility there in that, when you do this publicly online, that it can induce a sort of panic, which I guess sort of happened
Well, I tried 3 times to quell the reaction of the Border Patrol and of the Coast Guard and of the DHS officials. Just to say, you don't need to shut the port down. All you have to do is, this is recorded conversation, so they can publish these calls if they so choose to prove this in terms of metadata. But I said, standard specific thing, just look at the diplomatic thing. Now, if the public gets excited about something, and there have been many people that have said, oh, there's a bomb in such and such train. This happens every day, or in an airport. No one says to that person who called out a suspicious bag, do you think it's irresponsible that you called out a suspicious bag at the airport? The problem is that this country has just seen the special counsel Mueller give immunity to general blanket immunity to James Comey and Andrew McCabe for their involvement in the Huma and Hillary servers. They do not feel anymore that their investigative officials necessarily have the best interests of them, the American people, at heart. Otherwise, they would have published Hillary's and Huma's emails by now, at least the metadata. So that's the premise I'm working for, is if the powers that be will not actively investigate the Awan brothers. I went to Capitol Hill. I went to Senator Rand Paul's office. I talked to the Chief of Legislative Affairs, and I said the Awan brothers. And they were all laughing because they were getting ready for a softball game. Later that day, there was an assassination attempt on. Later the next day, there was an assassination attempt on Senator Paul. I am highlighting a clear and present danger on Capitol Hill. Okay. And the next day, the senator is almost murdered. So at what point do you say it's irresponsible, and what point do you say it's your duty to say something? If you see something, say something in a public way that can be publicly verified. So there's a real balance there. But when people fall down on their responsibility, then the public has to step in. There's no choice. There's no choice. So I know that's going to seem a little extreme and maybe to you seem irresponsible, but all along the way we were fact-checking. All along the way we were fact-checking.
Public records, bills of lading, trade routes, intelligence that's been gathered over the course of months in terms of where the ship has been. The thing that needs to be looked at is, what are these Awan brothers doing, owning all these companies, working full-time in Congress, making 2.5 times the average salary of anybody in Congress? Why are they shipping 160 pounds of canned food from Canada to Florida on Maersk vessels? Why are they shipping 12-year-old automobiles on Maersk vessels? There's something going on there. We need to look at what's going on with these Awan brothers shipping companies.
And they have car dealerships in Pakistan, transportation companies to Pakistan. They've done land swindles in Pakistan and near Faisalabad. There's just a mountain of evidence if you go over all the videos that I've done. And there's only 2 senators, or only 1 member of Congress that's acknowledged the Awan brothers, and that's Louis Gohmert. Still to this day.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz threatened the chief of the D.C. Capitol Police, Daniel Verderosa, in order to get back evidence in an ongoing investigation of multiple burglaries in which the Awan brothers are accused of stealing laptops and BlackBerries from members of Congress. Why is that not irresponsible? We're calling out a potential threat. If we knew this and we had this information and we said, well, no one's exactly told us there's definitely a dirty bomb that's going to go off, we better not say anything, and then it went off, then what? People would be killed, huge environmental disaster. You think about all the people that we hear about, post 9/11, all these FBI agents came forward and said they had intelligence, but they weren't able to effectively get it to the right people to action on it. So, as George said, he gave very specific instructions that they should be looking in the diplomatic pouch containers. They should be looking specifically. I mean, what are they there to do? They're there to make sure there's no dangerous illicit materials coming in on these shipping containers.
Yeah, and I admit there was a little bit of a frenzy that was created because of the impending nature of the Maersk docking. It just so happens the Maersk just happened to be docking at that time. So that did whip up a little bit of a frenzy that was unintentional.
And that was being tracked in real time on a publicly available website.
Right. But I will just say this in closing. I believe there's another follow-up story that is unconfirmed, that they actually did find nuclear material on the boat. And that is completely unconfirmed. But if that is true, then it turns out that it was a credible threat, and it turns out we were correct. Now, I'm not saying that that was an assertion we made. All we said was recommended a standard, specific test.
Based on a preponderance of evidence that we had over an 8-month investigation and all these different things we've been telling you.
Okay.
We got to go.
Okay, thanks, guys. We'll stay in touch.
Thanks very much. We'll talk to you soon, okay? Thanks, Donie.